With the intense focus on the Republican primary this election season, one Democratic underdog has been getting attention for his controversial comments, spreading misinformation on a range of topics. That was on display again today as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testified on Capitol Hill at a hearing convened by House Republicans. Lisa Desjardins explores what has captured the attention of some voters.
Thank you all very much.
The first major 2024 surprise. Democrat Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has sparked double-digit support in polls, controversy on airwaves, and a headache for President Joe Biden. This spring, the 69-year-old environmental lawyer launched his campaign, highlighting his famous political family, speaking in Massachusetts, with a sea of Kennedy for President signs.
I've come here today to announce my candidacy for the Democratic nomination for President of the United States.
The echo of the past, impossible to miss.
I am announcing today my candidacy for the presidency of the United States.
The son of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who was assassinated months after launching his campaign for president, and nephew of John F. Kennedy, killed while president.
My father and my uncle had a vision for America.
On one hand, this Kennedy leans into his family's legacy with views that are anti-war, pro-environment, and talk of ending divide.
The possibility they foresaw is still alive, the America that almost was, and yet may be. It's time to unlearn the reflexes of fear and blame and find ways to unify ourselves and turn our country around.
But on the other hand, Kennedy stokes his own controversy, conspiracy, and at times racial confrontation. As in the latest headlines, the New York Post obtained video of Kennedy at a dinner with reporters saying the coronavirus targets specific racial groups.
COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
Outcry was immediate. The head of the Anti-Defamation League wrote that the idea feeds into conspiracy theories, lacks any factual basis, and is nuts. The Jewish group has put out research in the past debunking racist COVID theories as dangerous. Kennedy tweeted out that his words were misconstrued, yet doubled down on the idea of ethnic targeting. He linked to a study. But that study does not say any group is targeted by or immune from COVID. Instead, it focused on some cell traits that might make things easier or harder for the virus. That study was early in the pandemic. It is now clear, of course, that COVID hit brutally across ethnic populations. At Kennedy's fiery hearing on Capitol Hill today, Democrats blasted him.
Your bizarre, unproven claim echoes that same historic slander of labeling Jews and Chinese people as a race, and that Jews, and in this case Chinese people, somehow managed to avoid a deadly illness that targets other groups for death. You do see that, yes or no?
You're misstating.
No. I quoted what you said earlier.
You are slandering me incorrectly. You're saying is dishonest.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Florida.
Myself.
When presented with many of his past statements, Kennedy told lawmakers he is misunderstood.
My views are constantly misrepresented. I believe vaccines should be tested with the same rigor as other medicines and medications.
But Kennedy has pushed a host of disproven ideas that undermine all vaccines, including the idea that vaccines make people sicker when data show they overwhelmingly save lives.
The more he talks, the more he gets himself in trouble.
Erin O'Brien is a political science professor at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. She's heard Kennedy pop up on podcasts spouting a series of unproven conspiracies, some debunked, questioning what causes HIV, alleging that a pesticide makes people transgender, and, as on the Joe Rogan podcast, baselessly suggesting that vaccines cause autism.
And everybody will say, oh, there's no study that shows autism and vaccines are connected. That's just crazy. That's people who are not looking at science.
The study Kennedy has pointed to in the past was retracted, and several mass studies have proven the opposite. No link. But Professor O'Brien says Kennedy has scored politically.
The vast majority of us are not scientists, and you go to school for a long time for that. You learn a rigorous scientific method. So he's smart as a politician saying, I trust you. You look at the facts. But what he means is Google some stuff and don't discern which facts should be believed, which are peer reviewed.
But is he a real threat to Joe Biden? Kennedy has stayed consistently in the low teens in head-to-head polls. Not nothing, but not yet within real striking distance.
I honestly think he's a vessel, he's a symbol for dissatisfaction, going back to the fact that most individuals don't want to vote for Donald Trump, nor do they want to vote for Joe Biden. So Robert F. Kennedy right now is the beneficiary of some of that disdain.
Kennedy has ginned up interest from corners of both parties, a rare Democrat appearing regularly on conservative media. Also rare, Donald Trump has praised him. They share a goal, after all, defeating Joe Biden. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Lisa Desjardins.
And to help put some of Mr. Kennedy's comments into context, we're joined by Dr. Paul Offitt, who is a member of an FDA advisory committee on vaccines. He's also director of the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So RFK Jr. is widely known as an anti-vaccine activist. He has a much larger platform now as he runs for president. He says that many of his views are misunderstood, they're taken out of context. Help us understand what he's been promoting and what the science tells us about it.
Well, he's been promoting false information about vaccines. He's been promoting the notion that vaccines cause autism, which is clearly not true, or cause a variety of other chronic diseases like diabetes or multiple sclerosis or attention deficit disorder, and that's all not true. So what he does is, by putting misinformation out there, he causes people to make bad decisions that put themselves and their family at risk.
You also point to one episode where he spoke out against the measles vaccine. What was the impact of that?
In Samoa, there were 2 children that died immediately following receipt of a measles vaccine. And the way it works in Samoa is they have a MMR vaccine in powdered form. It needs to be diluted in water. 2 nurses made a mistake. Instead of diluting it in water, they diluted it in a muscle relaxant. Those children stopped breathing and died immediately. Now, very quickly, within 2 weeks, it was realized what that mistake was. It was a nursing error. But nonetheless, RFK Jr. seized on that. He flooded Facebook with the information that measles vaccine is killing children in Samoa. He went to Samoa. He met with anti-vaccine activists. He met with senior officials in Samoa and kept the drumbeat alive that measles vaccine was killing children in Samoa. As a consequence, vaccination rates fell from 70% to 30%. And between September and December of 2019, there was a massive measles epidemic. In this island nation of 200,000 people, there were 57,000 cases of measles and 83 deaths. Most of those deaths were in children less than 4 years of age. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had everything to do with that. And that shows you how disinformation can kill.
He's drawn criticism most recently for saying that COVID ethnically targets, that's the phrase he used, white and black people and not certain Jewish and Chinese people. Is there any evidence to support that?
No, there's evidence that doesn't support it. Actually, the paper that he points to, he should have read exactly when that paper was submitted for publication. It was submitted before COVID ever came into the United States. Those researchers were trying to make a prediction based on certain so-called genetic differences among racial or ethnic or religious groups as to who would likely or not likely get COVID. Well, now we know that they were wrong. COVID was an equal opportunity employer. 7 million people have died. It doesn't matter what your racial or ethnic or religious background was. The only thing that matters is your age, number of comorbidities, whether you're immune compromised. So that prediction that was made by that paper was wrong. Nonetheless, he still held on to it as fact.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says that his views shouldn't be censored, that people should be free to do their own research. In your view, what are the problems with bad information being on the same playing field with good information, with scientific data?
Well, I think the Samoa outbreak told you a lot about what it means to have bad information out there. I think, the notion that people can therefore do their own research, but the fact of the matter is when he says do your own research, what he really means is look on the internet and find out other people's opinions. I mean, most people don't look at all the original papers. And so, for example, if you look at the paper that he cited as showing why there are racial or ethnic differences in susceptibility, you'd see how flawed that paper was. But you do need, to some extent, a scientific background. In any case, it's hard for him to watch him put this kind of misinformation out there continually. He definitely is showing what misinformation can do. And as a consequence, children are suffering this.
More than 3 years after the start of the pandemic, as you see it, how has misinformation taken hold?
The problem, I think, is social media, which is a source of great information and awful information. And people feel that they can go on social media and know just as much as anyone that's giving them advice. And I think, sadly, public health institutions have been marginalized at some level, whether it's the FDA or the CDC or Dr. Fauci or Dr. Walensky at the CDC and others. And so I think we've become a cynical, litigious society, not to our advantage. We kind of leaned into a libertarian left hook that people didn't like being told that they should mask or didn't like being told that they should be vaccinated. And as a consequence, we pushed back on these public health measures, which only hurt us.
Dr. Paul Offitt, thanks so much for your insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you.